It's a good day for a good day. Hello, everybody. My name's Cece Ray. Thanks for joining me here at Break the Dish, where we break the news and dish out the tea. Breakers, it's a Monday. Already feels like a long week. But the sun is shining, which I'm extremely happy about. So I'm not going to complain. So how was your weekend? Did you have a good weekend? I had a good weekend, working, got stuff done, went shopping, the same old, same old. Nothing exciting, but, I'm always happy for weekends, right? But I missed all of you. So guess what? We're getting ready to recap The Real Housewives of Rhode Island, Season 1, Episode 8. But before we do, you know what to do. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because here we break the dish. We are recapping The Real Housewives of Rhode Island, Season 1, Episode 8. This was a doozy. I'm just saying, this one was a doozy. So, we start out with Alicia practicing driving with her husband. And, the whole goal, apparently, is to get her to be able to pick up her daughter, from dance class, which she has 5 times a week. And in order to do that, she has to drive over this bridge. Now, when I saw the quote-unquote bridge, I think it's an overpass. I don't even think it's a bridge. But that's how this opens, and she's saying how she has to have her crackers. I got to have my crackers. And she has to have rosemary spray, peppermint oil, and gum, and a good playlist. And able to drive. Matter of fact, as soon as she gets in the car, Alicia's like, oh my God, I need a cracker. I'm already feeling nervous. I need a cracker. Like, it's so funny. And so while they're driving, he's making her nervous. So she's like, I'll tell you when I need help. So first she says, how was your trip? He's like, I didn't go on a trip. And it was kind of funny, But so she starts talking about her trip, and she's like, reminding him when she FaceTimed him. And did you clock? He turns around and he says, yeah, I saw that creepy doll in the bed with you. It's weird. I'm just saying, it's weird. She also starts telling him about the video that Joellen brought to the group, and how everyone basically wants her to tell Ruella about this. That's how that goes. And meanwhile, you know what? While she's driving, her husband is like so calm. He's like, you went through a stop sign. You went through another stop sign. She turns around and says, who put stop signs 2 in a row? So now we're with Rosie and her husband. And, she's talking about how, most of the group is on her case about how she doesn't have any money, and she's lying about the square footage of her house. And, it's funny. So she's got this dog in a dress. It looks so cute. So she's like, we have to take him for a walk. And so while they're walking, she puts on these moon shoes. Have you ever seen these before? I would definitely give them a try. I could see where you could really get a good workout with them, to be quite honest. I mean, you kind of look funky. And I thought I heard her say that they're made for children. So what size does she wear? You see what I'm saying? Because it looks fairly large. But it looks kind of cool. You know what I'm saying? To be quite honest, like, I would try it. I think you could get a really good workout. But, she's bouncing up and down, and meanwhile he's just like walking. And, she's talking about her and Kelsey and um, how she moved. She's talking about Kelsey, how she moved out of her ex's house into a new apartment, but her ex is still paying for it. And she's like, and, everybody says, I'm the problem. And so then she starts talking about how they kind of, made peace and moved forward. And he's like, her husband suggests maybe you should, suggest to go do something. He seems like a peacemaker. You know what I mean? Like a real peacemaker. Um, so then we see Kelsey. She's in her new apartment. I think it's more like a townhouse than an apartment because it does have multi-levels to it, but it is nice. I mean, did you see that walk-in closet? Hello. I don't have a walk-in closet like that. I'm just saying. So basically, she's moved to the average person's home. But it looks really, really nice inside. Her mom and sister come to visit. And, her sister says to Kelsey, how much is the rent here? She's like, I don't know. I don't pay for it. Well, her sister and mom are like looking at each other. And she goes, my ex is paying for it. Her mom says, what else does your ex pay for? She goes, well, he's paying my car insurance and my health insurance. And her mom says, oh, you never told me any of this. Kelsey's like, it's because you're nosy. No, she probably would get on your case, Kelsey. Like, you need to grow up. You don't even know how much the rent is here. So that tells me that you're planning on staying here throughout the lease and never paying a dime. That's not being on your own. You just moved out of the big house. That's all. We see Ashley. Oh, and by the way, her mom turns around and says, well, what about Bill? Do you see him as kind of like marriage material? And Kelsey's like, and then Bill walks in and he's helping her put furniture together that she ordered. And she says to her mom and sister, like, he wants me to get rid of the car. So that's just another thing my ex doesn't have to pay for. And her mom says, so are you going to pay? Are you going to get her one, Billy? And Billy says, she wants a Bentley. That's the problem here. I bet Bill is a really nice guy, but he can't afford the lifestyle that Kelsey's been used to. Seriously. So he's kind of like, when she's lonely, he's there for her, but I think that's all she sees it as. Just my opinion. I'm just saying. So we see Ashley. She's talking about how the trip's fun. She wishes that Jared would do more, content like on Instagram because he gets brands like offering him jobs all the time and he ignores them, like he doesn't do them. And if he did them, he would be making more money than he does at the coffee shop. So we know who the breadwinner is in that family. Just saying. So now we're at Joellen's grandmom's house. Apparently, it's her mom, her sister Jen. They haven't been here since her grandmother passed away, apparently. So they go inside, and in Joellen's confessional, she's talking about her grandmother, how she was really close to her grandfather, but her grandmother just never showed love. And that's where her mother gets it from. So it was like generation to generation and how she's breaking that cycle. And Joellen and her mom and sister all sit down and they're taking a look at pictures. And Joellen turns around and says, you weren't nice. Her mother says, and you were? Joellen says, I'm not the parent. You never showed me how to be respectful, kind, and now I hate that about myself. Her mom says, and you get that from me? Joellen says, if the shoe fits. Talking about putting mom in her place. Hello. So her mom says, and you're blaming me for the behaviors you exhibited as a child. Joellen says, no, that's not what I said. But you sent me away 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade. Like, what was the worst thing I did? Her mom says, your behavior was out of control. The lies. That's what you did, the lies. And Joellen says, about what? And her mother says, about being with people that you weren't supposed to be with. Joellen says, being with boys. Her mom says, yeah. But if you notice the way her mom says, yeah, in that response, I don't know if she's like holding back something, doesn't want to bring something up because the cameras are there. I'm not sure, but you can hear it in her voice. You know what I mean? Because she's kind of hesitant when she says, yeah. It's really weird. I'm just saying. And so Joellen responds, that's what teenagers do. You also told me I was bipolar, and I'm not bipolar. She says, but I was depressed as a child. And that's not like something you send your kid to a place like that with drug addicts when they don't even have a drug problem. Her mom says, well, I apologize now if I hurt you. That was not my intention. I just had a lot on my plate at the time, and I was overwhelmed. Wow. Joellen says, why didn't you ever love me? And her mom says, I loved you. And if I didn't show it, that's just because I was raised that way. She says, I'll give you an example. She said, one time, my parents were away, and they came home early, and I was really excited. And I ran up the steps, and I wound up hitting my eye on the corner of the bedpost. Now I'm bleeding everywhere. And she says, my mom started yelling, my floors, like I just had these floors cleaned, because she was bleeding everywhere. She wasn't worried about how she got 6 stitches across her eye, or that it was her eye, or she was hurt. She was worried about her floors. And her sister turns around and says to her mother, do you think you became your mom? And she doesn't really answer. And Jen says, I think you did the best that you could at that time. She says, but there were points in our childhood that were really tough, and there was no way out. And Joellen says, the person that you were shaped the person that I became. She says, and no matter how much therapy I go to, I always feel broken. God, talk about sad and horrible. Her mom says, well, that doesn't make me feel good. I know that the damage is done. It breaks my heart. She says, the only thing I can do now is promise to be a good parent and a good grandparent to you and your children. And Joellen says, I need you to be there. And then in her confessional, she says, I have waited for her to say this my entire life. Hard. I mean, even on the after show, the producer asked Joellen, where's your relationship now with your mother? And she said, it's the same, but you could see she wasn't going to get into it. Tough. Really tough. And when you hear something like that, I mean, at least for me, I automatically reflect, like, how am I as a mother? Like, how do my children view me? I've always been worried about that, concerned about that. I never wanted my children to hate me, and even though I don't get it twisted, I do discipline, but I mean, to imagine that, I can't imagine sending my children away. I mean, but back then, that was a common thing. Like, if you felt like you had this out of control child, you sent them to these behavioral places, schools, camps, whatever it was. And, I mean, Kathy Hilton sent Paris Hilton to one of these places. I'm not quite sure in this situation. Well, I don't even know that situation, but I'm just not quite sure in this situation when her mother says, I felt overwhelmed. I had a lot on my plate. If the kids actually did anything at all, she just sent them away because she couldn't handle them. Like, that's what it sounds like to me. And that is so sad. So sad, Because now, look, she's right. The damage is done. There's nothing you can do. We now see Liz and Dolo. They're at Liz's company. Liz and Dolo are wanting to develop a menopause gummy. This is such a great idea. Round of applause for these two. This is a fantastic idea. Menopause should be talked about more. I'm just saying, But Liz is explaining that listen to me. Dolores has been in the gummy business for several years now through Frank. So, she's very familiar. And the gummy is going to address all the negative symptoms of menopause. And she continues on to explain, like, when she was in menopause, like, she went mental. This is Liz. She lost weight. She couldn't get out of bed, couldn't focus, like, it's everyone else. It's not you. You don't even know yourself anymore. And Dolores says, look, Paul and I almost broke up. Like, we were fist fighting over the thermostat. And Liz turns around and says, when we were growing up, nobody talked about menopause. They didn't even say that word. They said, oh, they're going through the change. That is so true. I can remember my grandmother several times, like, say, if my mom was in a cranky mood or something like that, and my grandmother would say, it's okay, Cece, she's going through the change. It's so true. The change. Oh, she's going through the change. Yeah. I think it's a great idea. If it addresses all the symptoms, fantastic. And I don't know about other people. Like, my mom passed away when I was younger. So I never really had anybody to talk about menopause to me or anything like that. So I'm completely naive, and it should be talked about more. So all women know about it, because no matter what, their bodies are going to go through it at one time. So everybody should talk about it. Why is it so hush hush? Why is it so hidden? I'm just saying. Then we see Rulla and Brian. They're entertaining dinner tonight at their home. They've invited Alicia and Billy over for dinner. And Alicia in her confessional is saying, like, I don't want to give Ruella the bad news. She says, like, I know what you did last week, like a play off of I know what you did last summer. So they all sit down for dinner. They had a chef make dinner, of course. Can't imagine Ruella, like, standing there slaving over the stove, to be quite honest. And Brian is explaining that, yeah, his podiatrist business is in the back of the building, but the front of the building, they sell, like, they do Botox, they sell Ozempic, and all this stuff. And Alicia's like, wow, I didn't know that. Like, I could come to you. And Brian says, yeah, I would charge you less. I need somebody in the aesthetic business to charge less. I'm just saying. Because it's expensive. It's expensive. So while they're sitting at dinner, Brian's phone gets like a ding, when somebody texts. And so he says, excuse me, like, I'm going to go to the bathroom a moment. And in the meanwhile, Ruella is at the table and she's like, he had a couple before you guys got here. He needs to, like, quiet down a little bit, let other people talk. She's like, he's just so excited. So Brian comes back out of the bathroom and says, sorry about that. That was a business call. And in Alicia's confessional, she's like, wait a minute. I thought he had to go to the bathroom. Mm-hmm. So Alicia says, how did you guys meet? And Brian says, oh, this is a great story. He says, we met in 2013 at, I'm thinking it was like a bar or a restaurant called Jackie's. He says, I was ordering a drink. She came up to order a drink too. So I said to the bartender, give this lady a drink too, but make it a double. So all night when the waiter came around, he was giving Brian a regular drink, but giving Ruella a double. And then Brian says, yeah, it went pretty well. What kind of story is that? Like, seriously. Ruella, like, he won your heart with that story? Like, giving you a double? He's been giving her a double of a lot of things, but whatever. So now we see Kelsey and Rosie. Now, Kelsey's driving to Rosie's house to do her hair. She's saying basically like, oh, and by the way, yeah, Alicia never delivered the news, if you're wondering. No. I didn't think she would. Did you think she would? No, she never delivered the news. She was like, I just can't. Like, call me a bad friend, but I just can't. It's not in me. Why did this group think that Alicia, out of all the girls, would be the one to tell Ruella about this video that Joellen has? Like, seriously, Alicia? What do they think? One of her dolls is going to do it? Like, I mean, I'm just saying. So anyway, Kelsey's driving to Rosie. She's going to cut her hair. She's basically saying, they've kind of made peace. They're moving forward. But when she arrives, Rosie's on guard. I mean, she is on guard. She's got the plans for the house laid out on the kitchen island with a measuring tape, waiting for Kelsey. And she's doing this to show, look, I'm not lying. However, Kelsey pulls up running this huge, like, police siren, like, that siren. And then she's got like a megaphone or some sort of speaker yelling through the neighborhood, you're claiming 8,000 square feet. It's more like 8 inches. And Rosie's like, what's going on down there? And she goes downstairs, opens her front door. She's kind of looking. I don't even think she realized it was Kelsey at first. And then Kelsey kind of like rolls down her window and she's kind of like, I'm just busting your balls. Rosie's like, okay. Right then and there, you knew this wasn't going to go well. I'm just saying. By Rosie's reaction, you knew it wasn't going to go well. And listen, I totally get it. I have this friend, and things have been building up with her and I. And she was having this party, and I wasn't going to like discuss it at this party. It was her party, But she said something to me, and according to her, she was joking. But I didn't take it that way because I had all these things already built up. So I was already on edge. And then you say something to me, I'm going to take it personal no matter what. And I think that's the deal here with Kelsey and Rosie. So Kelsey goes inside, and right away Rosie's showing her the plans on the table and the measuring tape. And she's like, we can go measure right now. So you know how many square foot we're putting up. And Kelsey's like, well, how about we do it after your hair? Like, it's not a big deal. And Rosie says, no, I think we should do it now before it rains. Because Rosie like wants to defend herself. And she turns around and says to Kelsey, like, what's the deal with me saying that we're building this house to be 8,000 square feet, even though it's 5,000 now? And when she says that, what she's talking about is apparently, she explains it on the after show, that they wouldn't let them build the third level. And then they wanted to put a basement in, and there was ledging involved, and so I don't think they got their basement. So now it's 5,000 feet instead of 8,000 feet. And still, that's a nice size house. And by the way, like, you saw the whole front of Rosie's house when Kelsey pulled up. It's not like she's living in a shack. I mean, it's a nice home. Anyway, so Rosie says, what's the deal with me saying the square footage is 8,000? And she's like, well, right now it's 5,000. She's like, but, I just don't like that. And in Kelsey's confessional, she says, I thought that I could get past this with her. Like, I was trying to be funny. It was a joke. And Rosie says, I don't think it's funny. Driving in, it's just crazy the way you did that. And she turns around and says, where's your house, Kelsey? I'm at least on the deed on this house. Kelsey says, you're being aggressive. Rosie's like, I'm not being aggressive. She says, you come in blasting this siren, after everything that you've done to me all summer long, and what have I ever done to you? And you can see she's like building up. And then all of a sudden, I mean, Rosie is screaming, get the F out of my house. I mean, it went from 0 to 100, literally. Like, I was like, whoa, what? Kelsey's like, I will. Like, you're really being a bitch. Rosie says, you've been horrible to me all summer long. Get the F out of my house. Kelsey says, I will. Like, Rosie starts screaming like, stop talking and just get the F out of my house. Like, just get your effing suitcase and get out. And Kelsey says, who do you think you're talking to? Rosie says, you are no one. Like, literally no one. Well, while she does this, she gets really close to Kelsey's face, and Kelsey pushes her back. Rosie says, don't ever touch me again. You are no one. She says, talk to me when you have a house. Talk to me when you have a husband. Talk to me when you have a effing career? And Kelsey responds, I have a career. Rosie says, sucking dick is not a career. Oh yeah, that girl went there. Like she literally went there. But that wasn't all. So Rosie is still screaming like, just shut the F up. The only thing you've ever done in your entire life is won a pageant that your ex had to pay the judges for. And Kelsey says, what? Rosie says, just shut the F up. Get the F out of my house. We are not friends. We are not cool. Get out of my effing house. Here, I'll help you. And she picks up Kelsey's suitcase and starts taking it down the steps. And I don't know why Kelsey was like trying to pull it out of her hands. Let her take it down the stairs, Kelsey. And she's still going on as she's going down the steps. She's saying, you're not welcome here. You're so rude to me. You're such an effing bitch. I'm so tired of you and the rest of the clique. You're not welcome here. You're an effing bitch. Take your shit and get out of my effing house. Kelsey says, I will gladly. Well, when Kelsey says, I will gladly, she walks out the door and turns around and says it. You hear the producer say, hey. And Rosie slams the door in her face. And I don't know what they thought was going to happen, but the producer takes Rosie by her shoulders, kind of moves her to the side, but instead she goes up the steps. This is where production broke that fourth wall themselves. Because in the next frame, you see the shoulder of the producer kind of getting out of the frame of the camera. And magically, the doors open again. Because production wanted this to keep going. They wanted to keep it going. So anyway, Kelsey goes back to the door and, because she wasn't done, obviously, you know, and she says, Rosie, by the way, I won the pageant, fair and square, and I don't suck dick for a living. Rosie yells back to her, actually, Kelsey, everyone knows you effed a married man. You're such a slam pig. Don't ever come for me again. You're a slam pig. Get the F out of my house. Do you want me to call the police? Kelsey's like, you're such a, no, Kelsey turns around and says, you think you're tough. Rosie says, you're such an effing liar. Get out of my effing house. And Kelsey says, I will. F you. And that's where the episode ends. So what did you guys think? Rosie's just yelling. I don't know if it's like all of it just like blurbed right out of her mouth and she couldn't help herself from all summer long being judged and called a liar and all that. But like, holy crap. Holy crap. And what's a slam pig? I have never heard of that. You're a slam pig. Well, apparently it means like, sleeps around, that type of person. You're a slam pig. You're an effing slam pig. I'm going to start using that. You're a slam pig. Put that in my new word dictionary there. You're a slam pig. But what did you guys think? I thought it was a really good episode. If you could rate it, what would you rate it? I would say a good 8, But it was good. It was really, really good. I'm going to cut this video short, though. Unfortunately, everybody, my breakers, I love you so much. Keep this conversation going in the comments below. And before you do, you know what to do. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, because here we break the dish.